Hi and welcome to part 3 of my How I Make My Travel videos series. This video series is obviously just about how I make my travel videos because a lot of people ask me how I made them. In this specific video we're going to talk about the camera settings and editing and production of a film at the end of it. All the way through the process it's a story and creating a story, and that's ultimately my goal. And this bit, the editing bit, is the, well, I suppose the biggest part, in all fairness, because you're actually creating the story. Now let's not forget as well that the competition at the end of this video is for this DJI Osmo Mobile 2. So it comes with a stand. DJI Osmo Mobile 2 comes boxed and everything like that. It's been used a few times, but yeah, all you've got to do to win this is make sure that you comment on the videos. You've got to be a subscriber. Give it a thumbs up as well. The more times you comment in my videos over this month, the more chances you're likely to going to win when I pick out through the random pick a winner selection kind of thing. So that's just so you know about that one. My camera settings for all my cameras are now set to 1080p HD, 25 frames a second, unless they support a higher frame rate, in which case I'll go to 50 frames a second so I can slow it down. And also some of my cameras allow me to do 50 frames a second at 1440, which is a tiny bit up from 1080, which means that as I'm using those video clips I can zoom in slightly without any loss of quality in the video. I'm in the UK and we're set to PAL, 25 frames a second, which is almost your actual real eyesight as well. Movies, for example, at the big screen cinemas, they're recorded at 24 frames a second. So yeah, 50 frames a second if you can, give you silky smooth slow motion still in your 25 frames a second project. And that brings us on to the projects. As far as I'm concerned, I'm going to go over what I do and the basic parts of video editing to get an edit ready that if you do then want to apply special effects, you can do. But ultimately, at the end of your edit after watching this video, you should have a bloody good film to watch. So the first thing that's going to talk about is the clips, the way I arrange them. The first thing we need to do is obviously get your clips off your camera. So I go to my computer, and like I say, you can edit on whatever you want. If you've got a smartphone, tablet, laptop or desktop, you're going to have different operating systems and different software, and there are tons out of there. In the video description down below I'll give you a few examples of ones that are free, but I use personally Final Cut Pro. And I use KineMaster on my phone and tablet. So that's what I use, but you can use Windows Movie Maker, iMovie, whatever you want. They're all the same, and everything I'm about to tell you will work the same as well, because we're talking about the basics of video editing. So the first thing we need to do is create a folder to put all our footage on. So on your laptop, for example, I have a hard drive where I work from, temporary kind of like storage. And I make a folder and I'll call it project. So in this one specifically, I'm going to call it How I Make My Travel Videos Part 3 Editing. And I'll title that as the folder title. Inside there, I'll give a folder for each camera that I'm using. So right now I'm using the Lumix LX15 and I'm also using a Zoom H1 for my audio source and a little bit on my phone and stuff like that. But if I was using my drone and my GoPro, then I'd have all those folders set up as well in the Osmo Pocket, and create a folder for each device that recorded something on it. Why do I talk about the audio sources? Well, because if you do voiceover and I want to record that into the whole edit, so yeah, that's part of it too. And I want to make sure that everything's separated for the ability to create my story a bit better, and which I'll go into in a minute. So that's it now. We've talked about the settings for the cameras, we've talked about the software that we're editing with, and how to get all your data ready on your computer to start the edit. So let's go into your editing software, and then you can see the timeline straight away. So you set up your project, you've gone, yeah, I'm making this video, it's blah, blah, blah. There's your timeline. Now your timeline is basically just where you can put your video clips and audio clips down, and it makes things into a line of time. That's all it is. So let's say an example. I'm going to use the campervan tales organised camping trip we went on recently. We arrived on site and then we immediately all piled in the pub and waited for everyone else to get there. So whilst I'm in the pub, I'm realising I'll use the Osmo Pocket probably in the pub, because I use that indoors only really, because the mic gets a problem with wind outside. So I'll know to go into the Osmo Pocket folder and pull out the first few clips, and I'll put them on my timeline. And I'll do the same for each part of the weekend. Each scene, and for me a scene is something that happened together unbroken. So we went to the pub, everyone arrived, we were there for 4 hours. Then we went to the campsite at night to light a fire and all that kind of stuff. That's a different scene. The next day we got up and went for a walk. Well, obviously it's the next day and we went for a walk down to somewhere. That's a different scene. When we got back, we went back into the vans, and then we came out later and we lit a fire and we did the live session. Well, that's a different scene. And that's how I build it all up. That's just the way my kind of brain works. And that allows me to know in each scene which cameras I used. So I don't have to worry about all that kind of mess everywhere. So I can say, right, okay, I'm building this bit up now. So that's this scene, that's that camera, go into that folder and then start pulling over the footage from it. Picking out the bits that are good bits, the bad bits, and doing a really rough cut. And that is you cutting out the absolute garbage of every clip. That's the bit where you press record and then moved it over there and no one was speaking. Get rid of all the garbage straight away for each scene. Once you've done that, you should have your end of rough cut. That is your story with all the different scenes in there. So you go back to the start of your story and then go over the process again. And this is the second cut now. And this is all about getting rid of duplicate parts of the conversations, things that were said the same between different people. Things that are absolutely dull and boring, bits where it was out of focus, the audio was rubbish, all that kind of stuff. Get rid of all the bits that don't make any sense and don't add anything to the story. So that's what I do at this bit and go through that again for the whole thing. Then I go back to the start and I watch it again. Is there anything else in there? Have I duplicated things that are on the way? Have I got my story in the right thing? Are there any other bits that can be cut out of it? And I'll go through it again. And on the third time round, I'm absolutely ruthless with it. By this stage, I want to have nothing other than natural pauses like that. No long pauses, nothing else in there. I want to not cut off people mid-conversation or something like that. And I'll start to then have audio fades between tracks that are maybe different volume levels. So the audio level kind of like fades in, fade out between the little bits of cuts that I've done. And then I'll build in my transitions. And I have two versions of transitions, a soft and a hard transition. A soft transition is kind of like a zoom, zoom in, zoom out, or a pan across, a wipe across, all those kind of things. Things that to me say, and then the conversation changed or something like that. That's what in my head I'm trying to tell you, the viewer. Now the conversation changed now, or something changed. But it wasn't significant, so a little bit of a transition. The significant transition for me is end of a day, and that'll be a fade to black. So quick fade to black, next scene begins. And that's me saying that's all done with now, we've moved on. And that's the way I deal with transitions. Now, another sort of type of transition, say for example, if you have an intro. Hi, welcome to my video. Today we're going to do this. And then you play your little intro clip. What I might do after that is actually play some B-roll with some music over it. And that's a transition because I've transitioned from one section of my video, one scene, to the next scene. But the transition is some nice scenery to look at or something like that. And that is just the same as all your other clips. You're laying down the scenery, then you're picking some music. I use music from Epidemic Sounds. It's £99 a year. And for a small channel like myself, I can use as much of their music as I want. Pick a track that you like that sits in with the video, lay the audio track on the timeline, and each beat or rhythmic sound of the audio track, you'll see the peaks in the little wave meter of the audio track. Try and cut your change of scenes to that. So, for example, we're talking about B-roll now, so there's no audio there. Put the audio to 0 on all your B-roll track, because if it's just scenery, there's no audio, don't have any hiss in the background, get rid of that. So, for example, I'm driving down the road, we're going through Buxton, a bit of scenery, a bit of open fields, drop the audio down to 0 on that, and then change it every few beats. For me, If it's a fast-paced video, it could be 4 seconds. If it's a easy-paced video, 8 seconds. And I'll use those beats of the track to cut to. So sometimes it might be 7.2 seconds. It depends on the beat of the track. And that's basically where I'm cutting down to. So at this stage, what I want to do is make sure that audio levels are not too loud or quiet when one clip starts and another one finishes, for example. What I need to do is ensure that everything is the same level. And your software may be different than mine. On my software, I have a little EQ level machine here. So a little gauge at the side that shows my left and right channels and the volume for each section. So if I place it over there and then press play, see, I can see the volume level. So right there, we spiked quite high, but the track before that,
cutting down to, do you need?
See, so what I want to make sure then is that those are actually balanced. And the way I do it on mine is I have this little slider here where I can actually fade volume levels in and out. So I can go to that track and that one and then fade it in and out. So if you watch this now, there shouldn't be too much of a jump between the two.
Cutting down to, do you need?
See how balanced that was? Now another way I could do that is if all this was really loud, I can just pull it down there. And you see that minus dB7, minus dB6, and just pull it down there to balance the audio against the two. And that's really important. You need to make sure your audio is almost the same level throughout the entire video that you're showing. Whether it's music or narrative, the audio needs to be the same level so that people aren't shocked by an audio scene that obviously just like deafens them if they've got headphones on, or conversely they're struggling to understand anything that's going on because the audio is too quiet. Do you need voice over the top of that? Do you need some sort of explanation about something? So maybe you could have some B-roll playing over the top while you're talking. Well, that's easy. Just put your track down of you talking and put the nice B-roll over the top of it and just change it as often as you can, like I say, 8 seconds or something like that, just to keep people's interest up. Flip side of that, you've got something really interesting to look at, but you've got no narrative, no audio to go with it. All I do is get my phone out. Hi, yeah, well, we're talking about this now, blah, blah, blah. Yep, I've gone in my recorder app. I'm recording it. Yeah, I've not put my mouth too close to it. But yeah, we're recording about that now. Stop, boom, send that file to the computer and put the audio underneath the B-roll or underneath whatever it is you were missing the narrative, missing the opportunity to describe. And that's what I do with that. Does something need a text title? Well, that's one form of basic editing. We're leaving the text titles, by the way, to the end because adding a text title is like adding an effect. And it can really start to slow down the process of your edit on your computer or your laptop or whatever you're doing it on. So you leave these effects, the text effects and stuff like that, till the end. So do I need a text title there for something? Would it help if I put a text title just to clarify why we were in a pub or what pub we're in, that kind of stuff? So text titles should be kept to a clip length of probably between 2-4 seconds, something like that. So someone can read it and then they're moving on, kind of thing. Because the unfortunate side of a text title, more often than not, people will read it, and if you're talking at the same time or something's happened at the same time, they'll completely kind of miss it. So that's a downside to it. So if you're saying, here's our new website, it's blah, 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 put the text title at the same time because they'll read it. They won't hear what you've said, but as long as you said this is my website address, they'll read your website address and then you've not lost anything then. So that's the way I think of text titles anyway. That's the way I use them. A lot of people are talking about intros and outros as well. Intros between 5 and 10 seconds they should be. Obviously, if you want, you can use the processes I'm talking about now to create an intro, bit of music, and then a few change of scenes on there just to depict whatever it is that your channel does. But your intro, place that wherever you kind of like really want in the first minute. What we generally tend to do is, hi, we're going to so-and-so place today, and the weather's looking great right now, so it should be a good weekend. Cut. Place your intro, and then you can either nip to the B-roll scene we just spoke about, the movement, you know, move from one place to another, the movement B-roll, or you can just skip straight back to where you were. So you'd just spoken about the fact that the weather's going to be nice and you're on your way somewhere, so the next scene will be, so yeah, we're going to meet up with, you know, a few people, and we're going to have a great weekend, and it's in Derbyshire. And then maybe then just you doing a transition into, yeah, you've met them and you're there. It's your story, you create your story. This bit isn't really about having to tell you how to create your story. It's to help you with the editing process along the way. If you've got an outro, bin it. Outros, pointless. What you really need to do as an outro, so the very last scene in your video, whether you like us and you like to say thanks for watching, really appreciate you, bye, or whether like a few other people, it's just end of scene, that's it, obviously fade to black, end of scene. What you should show next is 20 seconds, exactly 20 seconds of something scenic, where you went, you know, a time lapse, anything like that, 20 seconds of it. And this is for the YouTube end screen. Because like I said at the start of this video, with all the settings and everything else, we're producing a YouTube video here. The absolute aim of what I'm telling you, what I'm doing, is to produce a YouTube video. My videos don't go anywhere else apart from YouTube. I might use clips of them on Instagram, but ultimately I'm making this video for YouTube. So I want to make sure that I use all the tools on YouTube, and the next video is about that, but obviously this is about creating the video and editing it, and that's why it leads into it. At the end of your video, when you upload it to YouTube, they allow you 20 seconds of what they call an end screen, where you can put up your subscription tag, so people can click on that and subscribe. And then you can put in links to your website, or you can put in links to your videos, playlists, other people's channels and things like that as well. And you need to give that gap for when you upload it to YouTube and set that end screen. You need to give that gap in your video. Otherwise what will happen is the end screen will play out over the last 20 seconds of your video when you could be talking and stuff. So make use of YouTube. Put in 20 seconds of end screen, time lapse, something like that. A bit of music over it again, all that kind of stuff. So that's really my very rough, condensed how I edit, the simplified version of how I edit without all the fancy bits that sometimes I do on there. But ultimately you've got the fundamentals of how I edit, where I get my music from, how I set my cameras up for my editing, how I store my files and everything else. That's all done there. So if you've got any questions, ask in the comments section down below. And if you've also got any kind of like, oh, what's he using for that? What's he using for that? There is in the video description a link to my website, which is all about the filmmaking gear. So you can read in more detail and you can see a list of all the stuff that I use and everything. So you can go buy it or you can just check it out. It's up to you. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Take care now. Bye.